Out of This World Week continues here on the Jenny McCarthy Show. And of course, I welcome all skeptics and believers and non-believers and haters and lovers and light workers and even maybe some people that identify as ETs to just open your mind to my next guest's message. He's an insider, a whistleblower. He's come forward to share some information about what's going on behind the scenes of the secret military space program, along with important messages. And he has a documentary that's out right now, The Cosmic Secret. You guys can pre-buy it, but it does come out, I believe, November 19th. But I already pre-bought it, so I highly suggest you guys do. It's called The Cosmic Secret. Joining me right now is Corey Goode. Hi, Corey.
Hello, Jenny. How are you?
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining me on my show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
Thank you. So, there's so much to talk about. It's almost like, oh my God, where do you begin? So I decided to start with the beginning. Let's start with the beginning. So I want to go back to when you were 6 years old and you were recruited through one of the MyLab programs. Can you tell people what the MyLab program is?
Yes, MyLab stands for military abduction. And back during the days of MK Ultra and some of these other dark programs that we now know about, there were a lot of other programs that we don't know about. And they were seeking out youth, preferably before 7 years old, who had certain abilities, and they would discover those abilities in various ways through testing in school, standardized testing and other ways. And when they identified these children, they would bring them into a program instead of going, it's kind of like the Explorers program. Instead of going to school, you would go to a museum or something like that. And they would take us instead to a military base in Fort Worth, Texas, called Carswell Air Force Base at the time. And there they, during the day, they would train us and exploit our gifts in different ways. And they put us through a program for 10 years. And at the end of that 10 years, we would go into various different programs. Some of them, could be quite dark, but the one that I happened to be pulled into was the secret space program, where you serve 20 years in the secret space program.
I want to go back to when you were just in MyLab and you were going to a regular school, but then someone would come pick you up in a bus or a van and take you then to the base. Now, I know parents in the 70s, if I think back of my 70s parents, they were like, they didn't care where you were, you were out late. They didn't have any reason to be too concerned. But how did the school not ask more questions about you being picked up and taken out of school?
Well, the school system was a part of the conspiracy.
As
far as parents went, my parents, later on, developed into very spiritual people. But at the time during the 70s, they were not that attentive of parents. And I had a kind of a chaotic family life. And they usually picked children like that because they're used to being roughed up and they're used to stressful environments. And they excelled better in these military secret programs. So they would actually look for people that had a little bit of a troubled family due to the families being less attentive.
So then you go into the secret space program starting at age 16, and it's crazy that they bring you in and they have you sign all these papers with no other adults there, and
Right.
you're joining the secret space program. Can you tell people what is the secret space program and why do we need a secret space program?
Well, we have a number of different secret space programs levels. One of the programs that most of the military people know about and don't talk about is a lower level program that mostly is within 500 miles of Earth orbit. Some of these other programs are highly classified, and none of the lower programs know about them. And one of them that I was a part of was called Solar Warden, and its purpose is exactly the namesake. Before we developed our secret space program, we had extraterrestrial groups that were coming in to our solar system, and they would pop down to, let's say, Argentina and take a whole village and leave. And people were being abducted, and various testing was going on humans that we couldn't do anything about at the time. But we reverse engineered technology from crashed alien vehicles, and were given technology, and we developed a space program. And after that, after the early 80s, we were able to police or warden our own solar system from any intruders that came in or out.
Wow, just starting in the 80s, you said? That's when we were able to police ourselves?
Yes.
Oh, God, that's so scary. Okay, so then you complete your 20 years. I don't want to go back into the 20 and back yet, and if we have time, I will. But within the 20 years, were you off planet the whole time?
I was. In the beginning, I was going to be assigned to a research vessel called, it was the USS Sommerfeld. It was named after one of the scientists that really introduced quantum physics. It was a science vessel, and I was to be assigned to that, but it was, just a few months before my 17th birthday, and the captain of that vessel did not want me on until I'd been a little seasoned, because they had problems with younger people being brought on before, crying, missing home. And so they moved me over into a different program called the Intruder Intercept and Interrogation Program. And that's where they would bring the various ETs that were captured in our solar system intruding, or oftentimes captured on Earth, much like Men in Black.
Wow.
ETs that would blend into society. In one case, in the middle of Manhattan one day, the secret space program went in and pulled a high-level executive out of this company, and it turned out that they weren't even human. They had been blending in and were influencing our society and studying us in certain ways. And we intercepted them, and then we interrogated them to find out where they were from, to get in contact with their so-called embassy type people, and develop a positive, hopefully, relationship from there.
Why do I feel like I dated a few of those ETs?
Probably did.
I probably did. So then your job was what on the secret space program? It was to be an intuitive empath to sense danger?
Intuitive empaths were very coveted. They take your natural ability, they train you with guru-type people and also scientists to help develop it. And then they give you a serum that boosts this ability, but the drawback is that it burns up your neurology. It overclocks your neurology. And so intuitive empaths were used to, they'd be brought into meetings to try to detect danger or deception. We were used to interface with various extraterrestrials. Oftentimes, while they were being interrogated, they would have us sitting by, analyzing, what type of emotions and feelings and that type of thing that we were picking up, and what we thought was the agenda or motive behind those feelings.
I mean, Corey, you had to be pretty desensitized, because I can't even imagine trying to be open to feel danger when I'm scared out of my mind at what I'm looking at.
Well, during the MyLab programs, they acclimate you to that type of environment, and that's one of the reasons they like children from stressful home lives, because it's not that they acclimate a lot easier to this stressful environment.
And you sound calm now, of course, but you're a human being and was probably terrified at some of these points, right? When saying some of these.
I was terrified much of the time. Absolutely.
I can't imagine the PTSD just from that alone.
Yeah, I definitely have had to deal with PTSD, and also, all of these the memories. When you leave the program, they do a type of mind wipe. They call it blank slating someone, and that way they send people back into normal life, but they don't have the memories. But with intuitive empaths, about 3 to 5% of intuitive empaths, they start receiving the memories again, and become very confused and have trauma, and they have to put it all together. And then the military tries to intervene when they see people when they're beginning to go through that process of having the memories come back.
And when you say intervene, does that mean try to silence them or confuse them more or slate them again?
They'll either try to confuse them more, get them committed, or blank slate them again, and hope that blank slating takes takes this time.
So
But they don't normally kill anyone. Like when I started coming out with this information in 2015, a lot of people thought, why don't they just kill him? But as we've seen, that the best way to destroy someone is to character assassinate them and not to actually kill them, because that makes people more curious about their information.
right, you're right. Now, the 20 years, you complete the 20 years, you leave, you start a new life, you get a new job, you get married, you have kids, and then something happened that brought you back into this kind of secret world. What was that happened?
Yeah, I started receiving communication from some sort of intelligence that claimed to be a higher density type of being. And I had not dealt with that when I was in these secret space programs. They were very much flesh and blood beings, not beings that could just appear in your home or in your dreams at will. And in the beginning, I was pretty concerned, because I'd never heard of this type of being. But these real tall, 8-foot tall, blue bird-like beings started appearing to me, and to tell me that they're preparing me to receive information as I did in the secret space program, but this time it would be more to release to the masses, to humanity, because we have a major solar event coming up. Our solar system goes through a cycle of every 12,500 years or so having a micronova, a major solar event, which is the topic of our movie. And they were warning us that we needed to get prepared. And so since 2015, I've been delivering their message.
And why do they want to help us? Why are they coming forth and saying, hey, get your shit together, people? Why do they want to? Why do they care?
Well, what I found out is that all of these beings, even angelic ones, they do have an agenda. And from what they've told me is that they're going through this ascension process to where they say the one infinite creator at one point wanted to understand duality. So it exploded its consciousness into all of us. And we're all the one infinite creator bringing that information back to the one. And we're going through this process of ascension. And they claim to be that we're on a third density or the third level of this ascension process, and they claim to be on the 6th, and it goes as high as 7. So, this is a process that they want to continue on. They want to, according to their beliefs, return to the one infinite creator from where they came, but they can't because they're karmically entangled with us. And until we come up a level or two, they're stuck. And they're karmically tied to us because they used to be what we call the ancient builder race, a race that 2 billion years ago created a lot of civilizations in our local stellar neighborhood of about 52 stars.
So I want to back up. So these beings come to you and they say, "Hey, get ready because we're gonna take you and fill you in about this solar sneeze that's going to happen, and there's going to be a raise in vibration and consciousness on your planet. But we need to warn people." Were you ever at one point like, "Oh my God, can you please pick somebody else? Can I pass?" Or
yeah, no, I'm not the best public speaker, and there was a laundry list of reasons why I didn't want to do this. And one of the things I told them is I said, no one's going to believe me. And they told me it's of no consequence. And I was like, no consequence to you.
Right.
I'm the one going to be ridiculed.
Exactly.
And they said the only thing that's important is that this information enter into the mass consciousness, whether people think it entertainment, whatever they think of it. If the information enters the mass consciousness through the 100th monkey effect, it'll make it to everyone's consciousness and give them a little bit of insight about what is going on right now.
Boy, but talk about taking one for the team, Corey. I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking some heat for this one. And you still manage to, put one foot in front of the other and get your message out.
And heat I have taken.
Yes,
I have taken plenty of heat. So
I know.
I know you know what that's like.
I absolutely do have some empathy for that. So, we all need someone to talk to when we go through some heavy stuff, whether it's a friend, a shrink, a life coach, priest, whoever your best friend. But how do you and who did you turn to when this was happening? Was your wife someone you could turn to, or did you have to remain silent?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing is I never told my wife any of this because I thought she would pack the kids up in the car and move to her parents' house in Missouri. So, she went through some weird kind of awakening during the time I started to tell my story, and she was able to be there for me in a lot of ways. But when I started talking to my good friend and co-host for a weekly show we used to have, David Wilcock, he had a much deeper understanding of a lot of what I was going through and how it tied into a lot of the other whistleblowers he had spoken to that talked about the secret space program and how it tied into ultimately the Law of One. He's calling this information the Law of One 2.0.
Wow. I mean, it does help you stay sane when you're with people who are like-minded people.
It's essential.
It is essential. I want to go back to their message. So there's a solar sneeze. I think I've heard you refer to it before.
Yeah.
And what do they say, or what do you foresee? I know there's a bunch of different outcomes that could happen, but essentially, so people can understand, well, what happens if we're just sitting in our living rooms and the sun sneezes? What happens?
Well, there will be a buildup. It'll be like a crescendo. But the reason they're warning us is that when this solar event occurs, an electromagnetic field is going to expand from the sun and envelop the Earth. And all of our, believe it or not, all of our traumas and karma, it has mass. Energy is mass. And that mass is built up in our bodies. And if we haven't dealt with certain traumas and karma and become lighter, then when this electromagnetic field passes through our bodies, it can cause a lot of problems, including what we call end-time madness, where people are going crazy. And what they told me is that forgiveness, you have to forgive yourself and forgive others, and that will stop the wheel of karma. That this leading edge of this big electromagnetic storm that's going to come towards us is going to behave somewhat like a Christ consciousness. It's not going to judge us, but it's going to force all of us to kind of go mad and to judge ourselves and to see all of our own issues, and it includes relationships you have. A lot of people are probably going through that right now. Our relationships are real rocky, and they're having a lot of inner strife right now, forcing them to deal with things that they had hidden from their childhood.
Right.
It's that time.
Well, I have been talking on my show about how when I started this show back in 12, you guys? I'm not even sure, 2015, but how we had an astrologer in here saying, we're beginning to enter a time where the curtain is going to be pulled back and no one can hide behind any kind of curtain or mask. You're going to have to be revealing all of your truths eventually. And you can see it start happening with whether that be politicians or other corrupt individuals. Is this all part of that?
It's absolutely a part of it. No one can hide who they are. The apocalypse just means the great revealing. And at the end of this time that's been prophesied by many religions, there will be a great revealing, and it will have to do with consciousness kicking up a notch, and those of a lower vibe consciousness not being able to hide who they are anymore, and it's all out in the open.
I'm going to reset this. So Corey Goode, I'm talking to you guys. His documentary is called The Cosmic Secret. It's available for pre-buy, and what we're talking about is in this documentary. So if you're loving it, you can buy it. Speaking of the end of the world, I was raised, a Catholic girl, and I'd say an extremely strict environment of Catholic. And I remember growing up telling my mom almost on a monthly basis, the end of the world's going to happen in my lifetime. The end of the world's going to happen in my lifetime. I mean, I was obsessed with it, that something was going to happen. I was also, though, obsessed with the space shuttle. I thought for sure it was going to land on my head in the 80s. I wouldn't go out the entire summer. My mom literally remembers this. She's like, you stayed inside that whole summer just looking out the window. Because I thought first...
After Skylab, you have to watch out.
That's exactly right. It was the Skylab. I'm like, God damn it, it's going to hit my head. But I feel like, was it just me that always had this kind of weird feeling that in my lifetime this is going to happen? Or is it just people who are raised in religious upbringings?
Well, I firmly believe, and I've been told by these beings, that many of us down here that we call star seeds are actually some of these other extraterrestrials and higher density beings that have incarnated here for a mission, and that's to help raise the vibration and to expand consciousness before this event occurs. So many of us come in with a knowing, but don't know where it comes from. We just know. We just feel it in our bones.
Boy, definitely have that radar. So let's talk a little bit about disclosure, because I know that that's a big thing that you guys talk about, and how we're hoping for full disclosure, but maybe getting partial disclosure. For those that have no idea what the hell we're talking about, will you talk about what kind of full disclosure means to you?
Yeah, full disclosure has to do with not just someone walking out, tapping on a microphone saying aliens are real and then walking off. Well, how long have we known aliens are real? What has been done, what types of crimes against humanity have been done to keep this secret? Because the biggest secret wasn't aliens are real, it was how did they get here? That goes back to free energy and goes back to how our civilization is run in this, money system.
Exactly. So free energy is really the deep, dark secret behind it all. Because with free energy, what would go away? Oil. There would be much more technology available to us.
Right.
And they did suppress a bunch of technology, correct?
Oh, yeah. Some of the healing technology, and some of this has leaked out a little bit, but I witnessed technology that they would scan a human body, and every part of your body is made up of cells, like almost like colonies of living things, and they all have their own bioneural frequency that can be read, almost like a little radio. And when they detect the bioneural frequency of like cancer, well, they can locate it. It's like a Geiger counter almost. And then they can hit it with a type of energy pulse that turns off the cell and makes it to where it no longer replicates. And they can do that with other diseases as well. And they use it in these programs, and some of these elites get to use these technologies, but people like us are kept completely ignorant of their existence.
So when you say full disclosure, this is going to be some of those things that we're going to be able to discover.
Absolutely. And the powers that be want to give us disclosure. They really have no choice right now, but they want to give it in like a 20, 50-year dose. And a lot of us, we're ready to pull the Band-Aid off and get all the information, but these people, I've spoken with them in briefings, and they really, really believe earnestly that if they were to drop all of this information on humanity, that civilization wouldn't be able to handle it.
I think we can handle it.
They believe this.
I actually think we could handle it, too.
Oh, yeah. We definitely we could definitely handle it now. 20 years ago it would have been rough, but our consciousness has expanded, and we understand more about space and time and how it all how it all interacts a lot more than we used to. And so, I think that we're more than ready.
You talked about the elite. When you say the elite, we think the 1%. Do we go as far as the Illuminati, the Cabal, like all those terms that people use for the secret societies that are?
Yeah, you do. You have the Illuminati, the Deep State, all of these different names for these groups. And most of those people are actually like the varsity squad, all the people that we think are super elite. They're kind of the face of the organization, or they're not really supposed to be the face, but, the acceptable face of the organization. The true elite, we don't know what they look like. We don't know their names. Many of them have used technology. There's technology that can dial back your age. That's a pharmaceutical treatment that they add an energetic field to, and they can actually turn back the aging of cells. And these people appear to be in their 30s, and they've been around. They've been around for a long, long, long time.
Why do I feel like that will be the most popular technology when it comes here?
That is definitely, that's one of the things they routinely do. Is they at the end of certain programs, they will age regress people using this pharmaceutical technology method. It's really amazing. They say the human body is very malleable, that there's a lot you can do with it. That's why ETs really like our genetics to use to splice other genome together, because it's we've been so engineered that our genes just readily accept the changes.
I want to go back into the, let's call them the Illuminati, the Cabal for now, but the crimes against humanity, something that we can kind of pinpoint, would you say is like the Epstein thing coming out? That's a big, because I know pedophilia is big in those secret societies.
It is big, all of this sacrifice. They call it the old religion. They worship Moloch and all of that, and they call us worshipers of slave religions. But yeah, that's very much involved. That'll come out. But some of the more disturbing things are, when ETs were coming in before the 80s, they would come in and take entire villages, come in and steal, kidnap various people and take them off planet forever. Well, these groups that ran these secret space programs figured out that these humans could be a commodity. So they started this intergalactic slave trade where they started taking people from our own planet and trading them off to ETs for technology and biologicals from other star systems to expand our program. So there are some very dark parts to it, and make some of the other stuff that's been out in the media and called conspiracy theory, look, like not as big of a deal. Even though when we talk about, pedophilia and all of that, you don't get any worse than that. But when we talk about how many people, over 1 million a year that are going off planet to be shipped, to other star systems.
Can't imagine. They can't hide anywhere though now. It's all coming out eventually.
Yep, it's all
I do want to talk about how we can save ourselves. How do we raise our consciousness, and the messaging that you're getting of it's time, people, to wake up and, live in your truth, be kind to people. What are some ways that you think that people can get there?
Well,
I love talking about co-consciousness, co-creating,
right.
that too.
Right. Well, we need to focus on being service to others. We need to focus on going inward. Right now everyone's so frazzled. We just point at others and say they're agitating me. They're causing this. But realizing that the only way out is in is key. And getting into a meditative cycle. In the mornings, several times throughout the day, meditate. Try to bring yourself into a calm meditative state, focusing on love. And the most important thing, though, is to start going over the different traumas in your life that are holding you back. And it's time to deal with those. And if you don't, you'll finally just start popping up, all over the place. So it's just the nature of the energies of the time we're in. So it's best to not fight it, because you will develop this end time madness. Grab the bull by the horns and start doing the work. And that's what's going to save everyone.
And the power of our, consciousness creating together.
Yeah, our mass consciousness is co-creating this reality. This is a consensus reality we're living in. And as our consciousness rises, we start to learn more about how much control we have over reality. And I think that we're learning that if we come together and focus on a more positive future and positive reality, we will all co-create that together.
And then, so it sounds so great. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's find something to unify and have, create this beautiful, timeline, optimal timeline together. But then you go and you turn on the news and you see Republicans and Democrats going at it. How do we unify our consciousness when everything around us is so divided?
Well, I think it's just important that each of us find our tribe, in our local areas, meetup.com kind of places, find people that are like-minded and start working together. I tried to bring people together, but due to the energies of this time, everyone is so polarized in their service to self, service to other type of stances that I don't think it's possible to bring everyone together unless something massively happened publicly. So I think we need to focus on ourselves and to find, like we were talking about earlier, it's essential to have people that are like-minded and that have a similar mission in your area to help you rejuvenate and, be able to take all the slings and arrows of these missions.
And the sun sneeze that's happening, it's predicted to be, they don't really know when, but according to the messages that you're getting from the blue beings, somewhere before 2023?
Well, somewhere, it just depends. It depends on the solar cycles, and solar minimum can take, up to 11 years, and they expect the solar sneeze to occur when we come out of this solar minimum, because we are so far overdue, and they've proven that this solar sneeze or micronova occurs by debris that they found on the dark side of the moon. They found what was basically glass on the dark side of the moon, and when they tested it, it was ejecta from the sun. And they found other evidence that possibly the dinosaurs were not killed by a meteor, that they were killed by a solar event that occurs every 12,500 years in our solar system. And we're overdue.
God, it's all so fascinating. Corey, I'm so grateful that you came on our show and enlightened all of us with your story. If you guys want more of this information, it's an amazing documentary called The Cosmic Secret. It's available for pre-buy on iTunes. And thank you so much. I hope you come back on our show. And thanks for what you're doing.
I can't wait. Thank you.
You got it. We'll be right back, guys.